The dancing plague of 1518 revisited. Why did 400 people dance themselves to death? In late July 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, now in northeastern France, a woman named Frau Troffea stepped into the street and began to dance. She did not stop. She danced through the afternoon, through the night, through the following days. She could not stop. After 4 to 6 days of uncontrolled dancing, she was taken by cart to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancers, where it was hoped divine intervention might end her affliction. It did not. Within a week, dozens of people had joined Frau Troffea. Within a month, the number had reached approximately 400. They danced through the streets of Strasbourg day and night, unable to stop. The dancing was not joyful. Witnesses described the dancers as appearing to suffer intensely, their faces contorted, their movements frantic and involuntary. Many collapsed from exhaustion, only to be helped to their feet and to continue dancing. Some died. Historical records suggest that at the peak of the epidemic, up to 15 people per day were dying from the exertion. The response of city authorities was extraordinary and, by modern standards, baffling. Physicians of the era concluded, based on the medical theory of the time, that the dancers suffered from an excess of hot blood. The treatment prescribed was more dancing. The theory was that allowing the dancers to expend their excess energy fully would eventually cure them. Accordingly, the city council hired professional musicians to play for the dancers, cleared the Guildhall and the grain market as dancing spaces, and even brought in professional dancers to keep the afflicted company. The hiring of musicians and the provision of dedicated dancing spaces appears to have made the epidemic worse. More people joined. The sounds of the music may have drawn new participants into the contagion. After roughly a month, the city council reversed course, banning music, banning public gatherings, sending the remaining dancers by cart to the shrine of Saint Vitus in Saverne. The epidemic began to subside around September 1518. It stopped as mysteriously as it had started. Frau Troffea, who had begun it all, disappeared from the historical record. The dancing plague of 1518 was not unique. Similar episodes occurred throughout medieval Europe, in Erfurt in 1247, in Maastricht in 1278, in Aachen and Cologne in 1374, in Liege in 1374, and across the Rhine Valley repeatedly through the 14th and 15th centuries. In some accounts, the dancers were described as calling out specific saints' names, suggesting a religious dimension. The phenomenon was most common in periods of acute stress, plague, famine, or social upheaval, which has led modern researchers to classify it as mass psychogenic illness. Mass psychogenic illness, the modern clinical term for what was historically called mass hysteria, is a real, documented phenomenon in which psychological stress produces genuine physical symptoms that spread through communities via social contagion. The symptoms are real. The suffering is real. The mechanism is not supernatural or fraudulent, but represents a genuine conversion of psychological distress into physical experience, spread by observation and social cues. Modern cases have occurred in schools, factories, and communities under stress, typically involving nausea, fainting, or tremors rather than dancing. The dancing plague of 1518 has features that challenge a simple psychological explanation. The duration, up to 2 months, is extraordinary for a mass psychogenic episode. The scale, 400 participants, is among the largest ever recorded. The mortality, dozens of deaths from exertion, has no parallel in modern mass psychogenic illness, in which fatalities are extremely rare. And the fact that the dancers could not stop even when they desperately wanted to and were in physical agony suggests a level of motor control override that does not fit neatly into the standard clinical picture. Some researchers have proposed ergotism, poisoning by ergot fungus that grows on contaminated grain, as a contributing factor. Ergot contains alkaloids that produce convulsions and hallucinations. The fungus would have been present in the bread eaten by the population of Strasbourg, but ergot typically produces paralysis rather than dancing movements. The question of what specific physiological mechanism, combined with whatever psychological factors were at play, produced 400 people dancing themselves to death in a medieval city remains genuinely open. The dancing plague of 1518 was real. What exactly it was remains, 500 years later, a mystery.